picture comes out in the words. So, and my picture is not there at all.
That's the goal. Is where Meherwan is annihilated from the stage, and the other Meherwan
takes over.
Well, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Today is June 29th, 1994.
Yes.
I'm sitting here with Meherwan Jessawala, who will be resuming some of his recollections of life with Baba. Meherwan, last time in the last tape a week ago, we had gotten as far as some of your memories of the stay with Baba when his ashram was at Lonavala, and this would be in the monsoon months, this very time.
That's right.
1942. So we could pick up from there.
Yeah, actually, we were in Lonavala probably at the nearing the end of the monsoon season, and as I recollect, it was the time of the elephant rains, which are usually in September.
Lonavala is on the mountains.
Yeah, it's edge of the mountains, and so most of the moisture is deposited there. And Lonavala is a nice hill resort, and not exactly a hill resort, but still it has all the elevation, and there's quite a big sizable population there, and of course now it's grown quite big, being on the main Bombay-Pune trunk road as well as the railway line. So Lonavala has quite a bit of importance. As I think I even mentioned how trains have to stop there to pick up an extra engine each time, each way. Yeah. So we were in Lonavala, and I think we are nearing the end of the stay. I remember one or two more incidents there in Lonavala. Lonavala being quite close to Bombay, fresh seafood would be available. As I said, it was on the railway, one of the stations on the main Bombay-Pune rail track. So fresh seafood from Bombay coast would be available in Lonavala. And of course Bombay was close by. So Baba would like sometimes fish food,
Was fish permitted at this
No, it was not permitted. But somehow Baba once called for a parcel of fried fish. Just a small little parcel. So it arrived in Lonavala, and after many years I think the inmates tasted good fish. And pomfret, one of the best fish available in India. So it was nicely fried, I remember. And we all had a very tiny piece to whet our appetites, as it were. Baba liked the fish also, and he says, we'll call for another big parcel next time. So Baba asked Kaka Baria, who was in Bombay I think at that time, to come with 2 big parcels of fried fish. So Kaka got the fish done, and he brought over the parcels, and there was great expectancy in the ashram. Baba would be giving the fish. Of course it was Baba's prasad, so that was the additional attraction for the women mandli there. I don't know whether it was given to the men mandli or not, but the women's side got 2 big basket full of these fried pomfrets. So Baba comes in during lunchtime, everybody's called, and we all line up with our plates, and a big piece of pomfret, a whole pomfret would be served on the plate by Baba with his hand. Yeah. and we all started to eat. Then Baba said, has everybody had the prasad? And somehow Baba noticed that Elaine hadn't come.
Irene below.
Yeah, we used to call her Elaine.
Irene?
Yeah, I don't know why, but not Irene, Elaine. So Baba says, where is Elaine? So she was not there. And so Baba tells me, go and see where she is and call her. So I put aside my plate and rushed off to where she was in her room. There she was sulking in a corner. She was in one of her sulky moods. She used to often get a little moody, So it was one of those off days for her or what. And I said, Elaine, Baba wants you. So she wouldn't reply. I was a bit confused. Call from Baba and she's not responding. So I said, Elaine, Baba wants you. Come quick. So she just said, okay, I'm coming. Or I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but I was a bit nervous now because, if Baba's call is not responded to quickly, it leads to a change of mood from Baba,
And that you wind up getting involved in that also.
Yeah, so I rushed back and I said, yes, Baba, she's coming. I've told her. And Baba waits with the fish in his hand and waits, and she doesn't come. So Baba then starts to get annoyed. And everybody starts getting tense, The festive atmosphere is suddenly evaporating. And everybody is starting to shake a bit, feel shaky. Now Baba sends somebody else, go and call Elaine. So then after some delay, she comes with a big puffed face, and she doesn't come with a plate. So obviously there's going to be a big showdown now. We are all very tense, we don't know what's going to happen. And Baba's mood is getting more and more irritated. So Baba beckons to her. So she she is reluctant to come close. She comes somehow. Then Baba says, where's your plate? So she just doesn't answer. Then he picks up some plate, then hands it over to her and thrusts that fish into the plate. Turns around from the shoulders and gives her a butt with the knee. Very annoyed Baba was. And tells, I think Mani was there to interpret, that how is it that you have not responded to my call? I'm very displeased with you. And she just pushes her away. And she almost falls, And we are all totally in shock, as it were. Baba was thoroughly annoyed with this. And his mood was off. So the fish was just on everybody's plate. And it was difficult to swallow the morsels, When Baba was not in mood, the whole atmosphere was spoiled. So that was the time when we had to enjoy a little good fish, and Baba wouldn't let us do it. Then, while this was then Elaine went back to her room in a sullen mood and was crying there. In the meantime, Naja had finished her fish. She was in her own room. She hadn't noticed all this. So she just comes in and she sees those big piles of fish still not distributed. So she comes to Baba in a very sort of funny mood, and says, "Baba, may I have another piece?" In a very funny way, she starts to come to Baba. So Baba says, "Yes, you want another piece? Come close." And Baba's furious, at that time poor Naja comes in, not knowing what had happened. And then Baba picks up a fish and just rubs her face with the fish. And she's taken aback. "Oh, Baba, what's this?" "You want another fish, huh? You want another fish? Take, eat." And poor Naja's face was all smeared with the fish oil and the masala. And we are all shaking there. Why should Naja butt in at this time? So this was the incident. And then, of course, a lot of fish was left over, and Baba was in no mood to distribute anymore. So that day, after the whole thing was over, then of course Baba went to Heroine's room, and I don't know, something must have happened, and Baba must have smoothened out the whole thing, as he always does. So, but I remember in the evening, Baba had two of the maid servants there pick up those baskets of undistributed fish, and we went to the edge of the estate. It was a big estate, as I said, with different levels, and we descended to where that brook was. And there was another gate at the end, which we were not allowed to go beyond. So Baba had it open, and then we all trooped out, crossed that little brook, and there was some jungle sort of thing beyond that. And Baba asked those women to empty out the baskets there. And it was just thrown out. It was all thrown out. And then we returned back. And so that was the end of our feast of fish.
Whole thing ruined.
Yeah.
When that would happen, would the inmates of the ashram be irritated at, say, Irene for that?
No.
That wouldn't.
There would be no such thing. Of course, we would feel that, oh, this Irene is again in her one of those nasty moods and spoiling Baba's mood. But there wouldn't be any ill will towards her, because everybody would have these sorts of moods and elations and depressions. So, and Baba would smoothen it out in the end. So it would be forgotten then.
So everyone, as it were, knew better than to knew that everyone would have their turn.
Yeah, that's right. So
it sounds like when Baba would get angry at one, everyone would feel the effect of it.
Yes, that's right. When Baba's mood was spoiled, then everything got spoiled. The whole atmosphere would tense up, and everybody felt as if he was responsible for this sort of thing, as it were.
Yeah.
There was another incident, but I can't recall now. Something else was there, but when it comes, I will revert back.
Yeah.
So I think that was the visit in Lonavala, and then, yes, I remember it was my birthday, and November 22nd. So we were still in Lonavala, and I remember my father sending me a telegram of happy birthday or some such thing.
Where was your father at this time?
I don't know, probably he was in Lonavala and just sent me the telegram from the post office or what, I can't recollect. But I think he may not have been in Lonavala. He might have been Meherabad or something. So he sent me a telegram. Now whatever mail came first, it would be opened by Baba. So when the telegram was opened, he read it and then he brought it and gave it to me and says, here's your telegram from your dad. So then Papa, that was how he was called. So I opened and read. Then Baba said, come, I'll embrace you today. Today is your birthday. so I got an embrace from him. Mind you, Baba was in seclusion then, huh? Yeah. So these incidents which I am describing are not in sequence. That could have been earlier or later. But during the later times, Baba was in more strict seclusion, so much so that people were not allowed to come out when Baba would be coming into the ashram. Everybody had to be closeted in their rooms and all that sort of thing was there. Yes.
So actually to see Baba was something of an event, or it wasn't a sign all the time.
That's right, yeah. So until Baba called, nobody was allowed to be in his presence. So that would be there.
You know, I was reading in glimpses this morning.
Yes.
You had talked about how Baba was, in various of these stays, was off and on must work.
Yeah.
In 1941, Baba traveled some 18,000 miles. In 1942, 15,000. And that's like 1,500 miles a month.
That's
which is
right.
an astonishing amount.
Yeah. And mind you, those were the days when it was the hardest time to travel, because it was the war time and most of the trains were requisitioned by the military. So very few trains were spared for the civilian public use, and so there would be great rush in these trains. And tremendous hardships would have to be endured. The maximum time, maximum rush time, yeah.
Wow. So what between all this travel, like at Lonavala, this traveling and seclusion, Baba must have been really absorbed.
Yes. No question about it. So I remembered another incident in Lonavala was that the place was affected by ghosts. So we didn't know that. So in the night, suddenly our suitcases and trunks would rattle and they would fall off the shelves. Yeah. Then I remember one of the inmates was even thrown off her bed.
Really?
In the night, yeah. So some mischievous ghost was around. And this was reported to Baba, and Baba said, yes, there is a ghost around. And these ghosts, wherever I go, they always try to be in my neighborhood, because they seek liberation from their state. So nobody should worry, and if any such thing happens, to repeat his name and remember him, and nothing would happen. So
did you ever get frightened by this?
No, I hadn't any experience, but many of them had. Some people, their hair would be pulled and all that. Yeah. So he seemed to be a rather boisterous ghost, whoever it was. So that was another incident I remember in Lonavala. Then, the stay came to an end, and we all shifted from there to Meherabad. And
when was this?
I think probably the end of the year, December or so. And I remember Baba had called for a big meeting at Meherabad, a very important meeting. And what transpired in that meeting was only to be kept confidential. It was not to be shared out. So till this day, I don't know what transpired.
Oh, so it was
Yeah.
never.
I don't think it was ever revealed. But Baba was busy whole day. During that stay, I remember the day of the meeting, from the hill up there, I could see lots of people moving around at Lower Meherabad.
You were up the hill.
Yeah, I was up the hill with the women. And the meeting was down below. It was a meeting of men, only men disciples. So there was an important meeting. And I remember it was a time of great turmoil also, because the independence movement had gathered force. There was this Quit India movement, and Gandhiji was arrested, and there was a lot of tension in the atmosphere.
All that was happening right in the middle of the war.
That's right, yeah.
When was this meeting? What time? This is 1943 now?
No, it was 42, I think,
42.
end of 1942. I'm not sure about the dates. It must be in the records somewhere in the diaries, yeah. But some big important meeting I recollect. So when that was, which exact month or date, I cannot tell you. But this was my recollection. And we would observe from the top hectic activities going on in the Lower Meherabad. Yeah. And then, of course, after some days, Baba calls all of us, Jessawala family, and says that he desires that we should go to Pune and settle there for a few days. So once again, the move is declared by Baba, and my sisters look very pained to be separated from Baba again. And Baba then consoles us all. He says, look, I have some work for you people there. You go there and be there for some time. You know, your papa is after me that you should be there you should feel settled. So just to please him, you go there, and I'll then call you back. I tell you not more than about 15-20 days at the most. Then I'll call you back. But you must go and be there for some days. So, and another thing was that Baba's mother, as I had said previously, was fond of my mother. So she was also insistent that Baba make them come and settle here close to me. So I would like them to be here, which we didn't know about all at that time. So probably Papa and Shirin Mai must have conspired together. And so reluctantly the family went with all baggage and bags and everything to Pune. So that was our first stay in Pune. Now there was no place there, so Baba had sent word to his brother Behram to search out some good rented place for a month's stay or some such thing. So Behram somehow located what was known as Bindra House, and he got that place. It had been recently vacated by a tenant there, and the landlord had thought of giving it away to somebody else, but Behram offered a little more rent, so the landlord agreed to give it to us, and we went and settled in there. It was, of course, there was no furnishing, it was just an empty place, and we just went and tumbled into the place with all our trunks and bags and baggages, and we were there. So we just went and stayed, thinking that Baba would be calling us soon. So what we did was that we used our trunks to form small beds, and we opened our beddings and bedding rolls and just spread them over these trunks, and those would be our beds. Why unpack now? Baba would be calling us and it would be such a hassle to do it all over again. So we would be in a state of packed readiness, as it were. In the meantime, the school vacations for Christmas had ended, and the new year used to start from January. So my father said that I must be entered in the school, whatever it is, temporary or whatever. So he shouldn't miss his schooling. As I wasn't attending school, mind you, from the time I left Dehradun all through the state, Lonavala. But
you were or were not?
I wasn't attending school. But to keep up, Eraj was taking lessons from me and keeping me abreast, so as not to fall back in my studies. But then I was entered into the school in Pune, known as Bishop's High School. It was one of the best schools in Pune at the time. So I started to attend the school, and it was some distance away from Bindra House. So there was this small cycle which we had got, which I used to use in Dehradun also to cycle to school, And the same cycle I began to use.
That same cycle that Baba had ridden a little bit.
Yeah. And I would go to school on the cycle. And I remember the route would be from past Babajan's shrine. So the road was like that. Every time I would have to go, I would go past Babajan's tomb there. And my mother would tell me that when you would pass by Babajan's tomb, always make it a point to get off your bike and bow in reverence and then proceed. So she would instill this thing in me, and I would do that. But the thing was that Baba had given us orders not to visit any shrines or saints or anything. So even during our entire stay in Pune, we were not allowed to go enter the shrine of Babajan also, or there were other shrines like Jangle Maharaj. He was one of the perfect masters of old time. In the city there is another big shrine of a perfect master. Then there would be other shrines near Pune, like Alandi, where the perfect master Jnaneshwar's Samadhi is there. So when Baba sent us to Pune, he said, I don't want you all to start roaming about these places and shrines and visiting them. No going anywhere. So that was the order. Unless, of course, I tell you to. And then he allowed us once to visit these places also. Or whenever Baba would visit Babajan or any shrine and take us along, then we were allowed to enter. Yeah.
So it sounds like you led a very, very simple life there. If even going to shrines was off limits.
Yeah.
So
Baba was very particular about no shrines, no saints, no nothing. You have no connection with any of these things. Your connection is direct with me. And of course, what bigger connection one would want? The direct connection with the Lord. Yeah. So that was it. No, my mother was fond of the saints and all the stories she would read. So Baba said, no visiting these places. It's all right if you read them. Yeah, and she of course was happy to follow Baba's instructions too.
Yeah.
So whilst on this, I remember about Babajan and what connection my mother had with her. You see, in one of the earlier visits to Meherabad, even before I was born, I recollect that mother told me this story, that once there was a vacation and all the family had gone to Ahmednagar and were staying at Akbar Press, and then they would go and visit Baba at Meherabad. So one of these visits, Baba told my mother and Papa that while returning to Nagpur, to make it a point to, the way would be via Pune. So to make it a point to go and pay your respects to Babajan. So I think this was in perhaps which year, it might be 1927 or 28. I'm not sure.
She died in like 1931 or 32 or something.
32, I think. So probably 1929 or so. Yes, a year or so before I was born. So they went to Pune, and Papa and all approached Babajan, and Mama says that it was the time of summer, great heat was there, and you know how Babajan's place was, you know where it is, the present tomb is where she sat also.
Yeah.
And yeah, under that tree. There was no other shade or anything, and there would be these milling crowds all around. So on one side the women, other side the men, and there would be a lot of pushing and jostling to approach her. And she was sitting at that time, and Mama remembers she had a coconut in her hand. So now a coconut is considered to be a very auspicious thing among the Indian people. So the crowd was very anxious that one of them should be favored with that coconut. So she was holding the coconut as if to give it to somebody. And there was a great deal of pushing and jostling. And now our family approached, So, and they were having darshan, and mother was feeling a little anxious that how could we approach this? Babajan is being pestered by so many people and will needlessly cause more trouble to her. So my aunt was there. Her name was Gulamasi. So my mother says that she said that no, we must go and have a darshan. But mother said, no, we can take darshan from far. So she says, no, let's go and have. So they are approaching, and these women are there pushing and jostling. So while they are approaching, these other women in the crowd, they are getting annoyed that my mother is getting ahead. And so they are pushing her, trying to hit her also, and cursing and all that. And Babajan, seeing all this, she said that Babajan also got very annoyed with them. Yeah. And she says, allow my children to approach. And as soon as mother approached and bowed down, that coconut she placed in my mother's hand. Oh, and there was a big uproar and hubbub. Why this woman was favored? So my mother got so nervous, she held the coconut and with my aunt went away again. And there the women were cursing her like anything. Who's this woman who comes here and snatches away our gift? It was for us. And so my mother even wanted to give it away, thinking that she's depriving them, and my aunt restrained her and said, you realize what you're doing? This is a prasad from Babajan, master, so keep it. And it is said that when this is given, it means that a fruit will be as a sort of a fruit given.
Yeah.
So it results in she bearing fruit also. So it was what she feels that I was the one who was given as fruit to her.
In coconut form.
Yeah, in coconut form. That's the tradition among Indian people.
Yeah.
And she soon conceived thereafter.
Yeah.
And then it seems that during delivery time, it was a very difficult delivery for her. I was in the womb, and it seems that my position had changed, and it wouldn't be a normal delivery. And the doctors were very anxious also. It came to a stage whether the child survived or the mother survived. So they had to perform a cesarean operation or so. But the gynecologist at that time was a very conservative old lady. That's what mother tells me. And she would not go in for cesarean and waited. And then with some manipulations and something, they had me brought up. But she was
cesarean?
Without cesarean. But for alleviation of pain at the time of removal of the child by forceps, she was given some anesthetic. And in that she had a vivid dream that Babajan and Baba are coming with a big egg in their hand, and they give her this thing, and in that she sees a child, a male child. So she's delighted with the gift, and then they disappear.
Baba and Babajan?
Yeah, both come. That is what she tells me. And they both disappear after giving that gift to her. And then she comes back into consciousness, and here I am delivered there by that time. And she says that there were relations who were attending on her, and they said, a girl child is born to you. And she says, no, I know I've got a male child. She was so convinced about that dream, which she said was very vivid. Yeah. So then, and while I was still in the womb, Baba had also visited Nagpur. So it seems to be a well-conceived strategy to get me in here. Yeah, so that's what she says. I of course don't know all these things. But so this Babajan incident I suddenly recollected.
Yeah. You would have been too young to remember Babajan, but were you ever brought before Babajan?
No. Baba never allowed anybody to visit her after that. Mother says that was the one and only visit Baba allowed.
Oh, really?
Yes. And mother says that after this visit also, when she had, when they bowed down to her, then they went away. And then Papa said, now let's go to Ban Garden, we'll go there and have a nice picnic. Ban Garden is a nice place on the riverside in Pune. So Papa bought many things in the market, because Babajan was very close to the market there, the cantonment market. So Papa bought all these nice fruits and other eatables and pastry, and says, now let's all go to the Ban Garden and we'll enjoy some good rest there. I'm tired of all this crowds and heat and all that. So mother says that they were all in Ban Garden. They laid out their little tiffin basket and carpets and were about to eat, and suddenly they hear a big hubbub in the distance. And there they see in the distance Babajan coming in a tonga, and with following her a big retinue of tongas with other Baba of her disciples, So then she comes there, and Papa says, "Oh, not this old woman here again." And my aunt says, "You shouldn't refer to her like that. Don't be disrespectful." And she just heads straight for where they were sitting. And then she says, mother says that there were people even around one garden who wanted to serve Babajan. So there these tea stall people and others, they came running, "Babajan, may we serve tea?" And naan, naan is a sort of bread which is unleavened.
Yeah.
So, and it's very rubbery. So people following her, and so she says, give that to my children. Here they are so hungry, serve them. So hot tea and naan was served. And all that had to be laid aside, what Papa had bought, And Papa tried to break that naan and says, "What is this leathery stuff, and we have to eat?" And my aunt says, "This is Babajan's prasad. We should eat it with great reverence. You shouldn't grumble about this." And another thing mother remembers is that Babajan then tells my father, "I am your creator and you are cursing me. I am your creator and you are cursing me." And my aunt says, go and ask forgiveness of her. So Papa says, "But I have never seen this old woman, I never cursed her, and what's she saying about I am cursing her?" So she says, "Whatever it is, go and ask forgiveness," because he was grumbling all the while,
Right.
Yeah. So then eventually he was persuaded to go and bow down to her and ask forgiveness. And that was the incident that my mother tells. Of course, she used to tell it with good details and all, which I don't recollect too well. But this was the story that she used to keep telling.
And Babajan gave forgiveness to him, presumably.
Probably, yes. And yes, so as I said, I would have to cycle past Babajan and go to school. And that would be my daily route past Babajan. And I was in school, and of course the family was still awaiting his call, and the trunks were still unopened. We had just brought out a pair of clothing, and we lived a very day-to-day life, as it were, so that whenever he would call, we would be in readiness to go back.
You know what? I'm wondering how did you have means of support in those days? Because your father had left his job. Was it his pension?
Papa's pension was there, and Baba also would send some amount for our daily livelihood. But it would be very, very simple living.
Yeah.
No ostentation, no going to parties, no cinemas, no nothing. Just plain, simple living, as if it was an extension of life in the ashram, but away from Baba.
Yeah.
Yes, that was how we carried on always, whenever we were not in the ashram.
When I had heard about Dindra House originally, I had envisioned, because, it's so often referred to as something like Guru Prasad. When I went there, it's this simple,
Yes,
small little place.
that's right. So we stayed in that simplicity right through our stay in Bindra House for several decades, because Baba's 20 days stay extended to, I think, almost 20,000 days, because because I remember from 1943 to 1990, when eventually Bindra House was requisitioned by the landlord and sold to a contractor, and we were literally evicted from the place, that we knew it was Baba's call to leave the place, and then we came back to Meherazad. So the 20 days were almost 47 years or something. Yeah.
And at the time, you had no inkling that was...
No inkling at all.
You had never lived in Pune before, had you?
Never, no. We just happened to pass by in Pune in one of the trips. I remember, I think from Bangalore, when we journeyed back to Meherabad, we had just momentarily been in Pune for a few hours. I don't remember if I had recounted this.
I think so.
I did. I remember we were outside Baba house, and Baba was meeting Baba's mother Shirinmai, and then we just moved on and went to Meherabad.
When you were living in Pune, the first move there, was there much? Would you see much of Shirinmai and Baba's family?
Oh yes, so I'm coming to that. So as soon as we settled down there, Baba's mother, we went to, of course, Baba house to pay a visit to mother, and then she would come and pay return visits to us, and she was quite happy that we were quite close, because Baba house was about 10 minutes walk from Bindra house. So she would come often, we would go there. But unfortunately it was very short-lived, because we arrived in Pune in about January, early January, and Baba's mother took suddenly ill and passed away 2 months later. Yeah, probably that one of the reasons was that Baba wanted my mother to attend on her in her last days. I think now that probably one of the reasons why Baba sent us that particular period was maybe this. So, as I was saying, we would exchange visits, and mother would come be with us. So, one day Behram Bhai comes running and says, mother is very ill. So my mother and aunt rushed there, and they found Baba's mother unconscious, lying on the bed. And it seems she had suffered a brain hemorrhage and a stroke, and she was totally unconscious. So there was talk about shifting her to hospital, and the doctor said that it's better that you shift her there, because she's in a serious condition. So they took her in the ambulance, and my mother says that even while she was unconscious, she somehow felt that she was being taken to hospital and resisted going. So held on to the bed, even in her unconscious state. She didn't want to be shifted, but they didn't know what it was, and anyhow she was taken to hospital, to Sasun hospital, and she was kept in a private ward there, and my mother and aunt were in attendance. Adi Junior was there. So the doctors would visit, and she was there for a few days, I think a week or so. And there was no change in her condition. She remained unconscious. And the doctors then came and said that you might as well take her back home, because there is nothing we can do here. What treatment we are doing here might as well be given at home. and you all would have less trouble about it. So then they brought her back and laid her on the bed, and my mother and my aunt and sisters, they would go and attend on her and by turns. Then on the day she passed away, it was Baba's birthday. I think it was 25th February. So that day, while mother was there attending on her, and she had this experience, which she told us later, that she suddenly saw a blinding light and rays of golden light passing out of Baba's mother's nostrils, as if she saw her spirit passing out. And it was a thing which she couldn't bear the sight. It was so dazzling. The whole sight was very dazzling, very frightening for her actually. And my aunt was besides her, and my mother suddenly held my aunt's hand, but she couldn't see anything. And my mother said, do you see what I see? And she says, no, nothing, what's wrong? And just then mother passed away, Baba's mother passed away. So this was her experience at that time. Yeah.
So, communications,
a telegram was sent while she was very serious to Baba, and Baba was in Panchgani at the time, close by. So Baba then no sooner he received the telegram, he said, let's go and visit mother. So he came in a car, and I think about half an hour or so before Baba arrived, mother passed away. And when Baba came, she had died. So then Baba was there, saw mother, and he remarked that it was most fortunate that mother passed away before my eyes fell on her. If she had not died before then it would have prolonged her agony and she would have had to suffer a lot. So it is nice that she passed away before I came. Otherwise I would have had to prolong her life and the pain. So it was good. That was the remark he made. Yeah. So
there was quite a personality in Baba's life, Shireen's.
Yeah, the unique Baba's mother, yes, the universal mother.
Did he say anything that she was liberated or anything of that effect?
Well, I think Baba did mention that she was liberated or something, but I don't recollect this. So then we all attended the funeral, and Baba's mother's great worry would be that when she would die, there would be nobody to attend her funeral, because of the antagonism of the Parsi community for Baba, So her great worry was always this. But when she died and the funeral was there, never was it so full with people as then. And whole Baba's Mandali was also there. They were all called, and it was a great, big occasion. Yeah.
So
big crowds.
People from Pune also came, her old
yeah.
days, as it were.
Oh yeah, they must have all come, I suppose, because it was all full of people, I remember. We have a special place where the corpse is kept before it is finally taken to the Tower of Silence. And I remember this, it's a place just a few blocks down Dastur Mehr Road from where Baba House is, on the opposite side. and there it's a small hall where, and with a veranda outside, and the place where the body can be kept. Before it's kept there, it's taken to a side room where there's a small bathroom, and they bathe the body there, and then after bathing it, then some religious ceremonies are performed, and it's tied up in muslin cloth and then brought and kept in the hall there. And then the prayers start with the priests doing the prayers. And all the people assemble there. And only Parsis are allowed there. After the body is bathed and kept there, then out, the other community people are not allowed to come in. That is the practice of the Zoroastrians. Yes. So she was there, and then we went to the Tower of Silence, where her body was finally disposed of.
Do you remember, on the subject of Shireen, did you have any personal contacts with her that stand out? Did you have a relationship with her yourself? Or?
Yeah, not much, but when mother would be serving her, then I would be with my mother, and she would like to make me sit near her. And Baba's mother was fond of telling stories. So I remember her telling stories to my mother. Yeah. And I would sit and listen open-mouthed. And she would tell very interesting stories. Yeah.
What would she speak? Which language?
Gujarati. Yeah. She spoke very well in Gujarati. And of course her mother tongue was Dari.
Yeah.
Not Persian, but Dari. And Sheriyarji knew both Dari and Persian.
Yeah.
But Sheriyarji spoke with a heavy accent in Gujarati, which I never heard. Mani tells us about all this. Yeah. So that was But Shirinma used to talk very well in Gujarati.
Yeah. Sheriyar was quite, maybe 30 or 35 before he ever, came to Bombay.
Yeah.
He's an older man.
Much older.
Shireen was not all that old when she died, was she? She would have been...
About in her 60s, I think. Yeah, she was young. But she had this diabetes trouble, and probably that must have brought on the stroke or something. Yeah. So, but otherwise she was in good health right till the end. Yes. I remember, yeah. A few days before she visited us at Bindra House, and then she just got this stroke all of a sudden and passed away. Yeah. In fact, my mother also eventually died of a stroke in the brain.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. So it was a similar ending for both the mothers.
Yeah. Well, was that hard for your mother? Shireen had been a close associate friend.
That's right. My mother did feel about losing her company.
Yeah.
But when Baba had sent us to Pune, he said that it would be about just a few days, and also to console us, he said that he would often visit us. So he kept his word and would visit us quite often. So in fact, a few days after we arrived at Bindra House, Baba came with all the women mandali, and I remember it was quite a few of them, about 30 or so women mandali had come. And of course there was no furniture in Bindra House at that time. So there was this big hall which was quite empty, and all of them could be accommodated there. And yes, Baba was accommodated in the garage. Garage was on the outside, on the side of the flat. and so that garage was also given to us in rent. But as we had no car or anything, so it was used like a storeroom by us all these years. So as there was not much room, we cleaned out the place and made it clean and nice for Baba to stay in the garage. All the women in the main house itself, and we people were out in the tents. The big military tent was brought. One of my cousins was serving in the army at that time. So he had access to military tents and jeeps and all. So he helped us at that time, I remember. So we had a big military tent there in the compound. And Papa, myself, Eraj, and all of us were in the tents there. And it was quite a big crowd.
So Baba stayed there rather
For
than...
3 days Baba stayed in Bindra's, yes. And there was some singing programs and dance and music. So quite a function was there.
Did Baba have many devotees or lovers in Pune at that time?
Oh yes, there were many Baba devotees. There was, Patil was there, then Vitthal Mauli, then Gadekar was not in Pune at that time, in the early days, but later on he was there. Then there was Sailor Mama and many other close Baba people in Pune. So Gani was there.
Oh, Gani also.
Gani was there, then quite a few people. Yeah.
Would you see those people?
Babu Cyclewala was there. Yeah. Babu Cyclewala's shop was close to Baba Jan's. And I would have my cycle repaired by him.
I see.
Baba's photo would be in his shop. He was quite a famous person, Babu Cyclewala is mentioned, I think in Meher Prabhu there's mention about him.